Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our reaction and review for The Curse Season 1, Episode 3. I am very pleased to report I was able to get my shirt on today. There's no issues. There was no extended disaster. We did not have to redo anything in, recorded form either.
Yeah, and I am pleased to report that there was chicken in my dinner last night, so no TikTok curse on me.
Is Are there TikTok curses? I don't know enough about TikTok. Like, that's the real thing. I opened TikTok once. It was too loud. I've never used it again.
Listen, I only watch TikToks through like Jacksepticeye or PewDiePie or when Jenna Marbles was watching like their favorite TikToks, and that's about as close as I've gotten to TikTok.
This episode, I think it teaches us a good bit about the internet. It might teach us a good bit about curses. Like, is the curse put upon them by Nala actually real? Like, this, it sounds like a stupid question, but at the same time, there are no stupid answers.
Yeah, because here's the thing about curses, or seemingly on this show connected to curses, is that curses seem to exist if you believe in them. Because when we first had Asher, like, ooh, I got my curse, he
Yeah,
just didn't believe in it. But the minute that she was like, yeah, it's this tiny curse. Oh, what was the curse? Oh, I curse that you wouldn't have any chicken in your dinner. And he's like, oh my goodness, like, what was the dinner? Spaghetti. Like, it feels like she's kind of like, is she throwing it out there, or is this really real? And it's as real as you want to believe it is, because Asher feels like he has turned a corner now, and
yeah.
he is like, this is real, this is happening. And it's kind of like, okay, if this is real and this is happening, then your curse has already happened to you.
Yeah.
You already didn't have chicken in your spaghetti. So you're moving forward now. There's no other part of this curse.
It's a really interesting thing to dive into, and rest assured we will. But also be sure to join our Patreon every single week.
Yep.
We are there with a live stream talking all about the curse.
Mm-hmm.
Are the curses real? Is it not? It is such a fun show to discuss. We love chatting about it with you guys, and thank you so much to those of you who have supported us on our Patreon so far.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't relate to Asher on many things. This guy is objectively a pretty horrible person. However, I fully understand where he is coming from here. Like, I would be freaking out to the same extent that he is, because it is such a random thing that you're gonna curse and actually have it be real. Think about this. Nala doesn't know that you eat chicken. Like, you may not eat chicken. You may be a vegetarian. You may be a vegan. Also, if I'm cursing somebody with something that's like really, really tiny, I probably put way too much thought into this. But I was thinking something like, okay, maybe you're going to spill a glass of water or a cup of coffee on yourself. Or, maybe you're going to get like a stain on your favorite shirt. Or maybe you're going to be stuck in traffic for 30 minutes longer. You're not going to have chicken in your meal.
Yeah, it's very specific, and it's kind of interesting too, because a lot of the TikTok trends were things that were a little more generic, like, oh, your shoelaces are going to come undone, kind of those types of things. Oh, the tab on your pop is going to fall off. You're not going to be able to open it. Like, this feels pretty specific because, like you said, not a lot of people, eat chicken. There's lots of people that don't. I'm not a vegetarian or vegan, but like, chicken is my least favorite. Like, if somebody was like, oh, you're not going to have chicken in your dinner, I'd be like, okay, that sounds good to me. Like, I can pass on chicken. But we had Whitney even say like, oh, everybody eats chicken. That's a really generic thing. And I was just like, I don't agree. I don't think that is. You guys let me know. Do you think that this was kind of a generic curse that could have happened to everybody? Like, everybody eats chicken? I don't know.
Yeah, I just feel like it is oddly specific enough that I would be freaking out about it. And I say this as a guy
Yeah.
who eats a lot of chicken. I'm a big chicken guy. Like,
The thing that made it more specific to me was when he said, what was the meal? And she said spaghetti. Like, it really got very specific at that point, where I kind of thought Whitney would be a little more like, oh, okay, now that's weird.
yeah, she's a little bit too just dismissive of this. And I don't know if it's just because she's trying to ground herself in reality, which I understand there are people where you see a ghost in the hallway, you're just gonna be like, I was really tired. Maybe I was thinking about something else. Maybe it was all in my head, and you're trying to ignore the reality of there's a freaking ghost in your hallway. Now everybody's gonna think that I'm like up all night watching all these like ghost themed reality shows, but
Yeah.
it's that same sort of idea where you can sort of look at something and be like, huh, that's really strange. How would they think that? Or you can just try to dismiss it because it's easier than actually thinking about it. Like Asher
Yeah.
jumping to this conclusion of, okay, am I being watched? Like, was she watching me? Or did she see what we were throwing away? Like all of these sort of things. Like I understand to some extent why he's freaking out about it. I wouldn't think necessarily about the garbage. I would just think that something
No.
weird and supernatural is going on at that point.
Yeah, I just don't I don't know. I understand where Asher's coming from, where he's like, there's got to be a logical
Yeah.
explanation to it because that's sort of how I would be thinking. Oh, maybe they saw me. Maybe they somehow figured out what the order is. Maybe they got lucky with it. It's hard to know. But for Asher, I mean, when he ran into her again in the house that he just bought,
Mhm.
she didn't seem to really remember him. Like, I mean, she was just like, scared. Someone's coming through the door.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't know what's going on. They're running away. And he's kind of like, remember, I was going to give you that money. And she's just like, like, she doesn't really remember.
It made me feel like she probably over the course of that day went around to a lot of people and was just like, I curse you, person who I'm seeing on the street. I curse you, person at the
Yes.
supermarket.
Yeah, it's a TikTok trend. So she was probably going around doing a bunch of that. Who knows?
It's probably what you've already said to some extent, where it is, okay, the curse has already happened. If you believe in the curse, then that is really what's going to affect you long term. And if Asher believes in this curse, he's gonna act as though he's cursed. Like there's no other way around that, even if it is some sort of like weird TikTok trend, and maybe that's the point of all of this. If you let something get in
Yeah.
your head, it wrecks you.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, yes, if you let something get in your head, it wrecks you. If you think you're cursed, you're cursed. But the thing that the show is doing that's making it a little bit different is that it's a very specific curse. It isn't just, I curse you and now everything in your life is going sideways. It's only with this very specific meal. It's nothing else. It's a tiny curse. It's only this chicken spaghetti and nothing else. So everything else, it's kind of like, oh, the focus group doesn't like Asher. Oh, there's people living in the house I just bought. Oh, something weird is going on with that doctor looking at that ultrasound for a
Yeah.
little too long and then being like, Whitney, are you okay? Feeling tired? I'm like, what is going on with that? Like, that was the weirdest part of the episode to me. I was like, that is something that feels like something very bad is happening.
Yeah.
But none of that has anything to do with the curse because the curse was very specific.
I just think Asher seems like he's the sort of person where he has to be able to explain away everything, and he has to be able to have an answer. And because he doesn't have an answer, I think this dude somehow is gonna get it all twisted and think that, okay, this isn't a tiny curse. This is a much bigger curse. It's much worse than she ever said. She couldn't control her own curse. Now Whitney's shirt is wrecked. Now the people don't like me. What a surprise. The people don't like you in the focus group, Asher, because you bring nothing to the table when it comes to any sort of redeeming quality.
No, I mean everybody on this show are terrible people. Like,
Yeah.
except for the families living in the house. They're not terrible people, even though she cursed him. But I
Yeah.
mean, it's like a TikTok trend. It's not real. It's just nonsense, I think, anyways. But yeah, it is interesting to sort of see how if somebody tells you, it's like you get those chain letters and now they're
Yeah.
probably chain emails or whatever where it's like, oh, if you don't send this out to 5 people, bad luck all year. And you're like, oh my God, I gotta send it out. And then like I'm getting it being like, why are you sending this? Do you believe this? Like, stop. This isn't anything, but it can easily sit in your head.
I think the big problem for Asher is that he's been kind of constantly like just straddling this line between being able to pretend he's a good enough person to get by and then just being like a full out awful villain, terrible person and every single person knows it. And because he's on that line, if he just like does a little bit of a dance this way or does a little bit of dance that way, everybody is going to know the truth. And if you're paranoid enough, you're going to allow them to view the truth of just how nasty you really are, Asher.
Everything is just smoke and mirrors with these two. Like everything.
Yeah.
Like we saw that the coffee shop is closed down, the jean store is closed down, that they're like, oh yeah, as long as the show is really kind of going, then yeah, we'll open them back up. But it's just a lie that they've told the community. It's not coming together. Like it's things just aren't what they seem to be and what they are presenting them to be. Like even when they bought this house and the
Yeah.
family is like living in this house right now, and they're seemingly like, oh, you know what, we're just going to let them continue to live in this house until we get to the point that we can actually, the value is starts to go up, and then we'll deal with it at that point. It's kind of, we'll give them as long as they need to be able to leave. It's kind of like, okay, but are they really actually doing this sort of out of the goodness of their heart? Or are they doing this because Asher thinks he's cursed and he thinks that if he helps his family, he's helping himself? Like, I just don't trust that they have all good hearts here, that they're like, hey, this family needs help. They've been living here for a long time. Like maybe taking away this home is not the way to go about it. It feels like Asher's real motive is, I need to undo this curse and this is how I can do this. I just don't trust him. He's just
No.
kind of a crappy person. And so is Whitney and so is Dougie. They're all just like,
Yeah, okay. I agree with you about Asher. I think that he is solely acting in this way just because he thinks that it's going to ease his conscience and he's going to
yes.
be uncursed. He's going to feel good about it. He feels bad enough about what happened that, okay, I can try to make this all better. It's no skin off my back. It's just whenever it's time to move forward, we'll move forward. I think Whitney, I think she feels like, okay, I want to do good for other people. Like she says that, and to some extent, I believe her, but she wants to do good for other people on her own terms, where it's just sort of like, yes, I will do good. I will help these people. But then the moment that it's not helpful for me to have them around anymore, goodbye. As soon as the home value rises, then it's all about me. And then I don't really care what happens to them then. I think she'll probably come up with some sort of excuse at that point where it's just like, okay, we'll find you guys another home, and then that'll be okay. And who cares if it's as nice as this home? It's sort of like, the guy Fernando who worked at the coffee shop where they're just like, oh, okay, we'll hire you as a security guard. Now you got that guy like sitting out there in the middle of the night just because you want to feel less guilty about what you've already screwed up.
With a gun.
Yeah.
Like that whole last scene, I was like, oh no, oh no, this doesn't seem like this is going to go well at all. But like for Whitney, it really feels like she just wants validation. Like even when she called Fernando and was like, hey, listen, like I know that this thing with the coffee shop didn't work out, but I want to make sure that you have a job. So I'm going to hire you to
Yeah.
do security. And he was like, okay. And she's just like waiting for that, like, oh, thank you so much. Oh man, if it wasn't for you, like blah, 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 blah. And
Yeah.
she's not getting what she's trying to get out of this, because that's what this whole thing for Whitney feels like, is
Yeah.
she wants people to be like, oh, you're such a good person. Oh, thank you so much. I owe you so much, in this savior complex. It's just so ridiculous.
They seem to think that this town would not survive without them. It's like that they're the only ones who are going to lift Espanola to new heights.
Yeah.
Everybody is going to be wealthy and successful. There's going to be no problems at all. And I think for Asher, another part of everything that's going on here is that if he can immerse himself in these other things, such as, clearing the curse or finding a way to get this show off the ground or whatever else, it helps him to forget about this fear that he has now, where it's like, okay, clearly nobody who watches this show likes me, and understandably so. This guy has no real redeemable personality that he can even fake, but he's probably really worried that, oh, he's going to end up being replaced on this show, or that Whitney is just going to go and do it herself. Because if people just it's like if I watch a show and I like one person and I just like absolutely hate the other, I'm not watching that show. I'll go find something else that other person is in without the sidekick.
Yeah, I have a couple shows like that where I'm like, man, I really like the host, but I really don't like the sidekick, and it makes it like, unless you have an incredible guest on your show, I'm not here for your show. Like it's quite difficult when that kind of pops off. But let's talk about Whitney and Asher's baby and everything
Yeah,
that's kind of going on with that, because in the last episode we had her get pregnant, and then Asher was making these really weird comments like, I'm so happy for you. I'm really happy for you. Like, it was
yeah,
really weird.
yeah.
And in the beginning, in the first episodes, we saw that their intimacy doesn't include him in a way that could get her pregnant. At least that's what we've seen. That doesn't mean that's always the case. But my tinfoil hat theory is that that baby is not Asher's, and he knows it. And that's a lot of his insecurity, that they have some sort of a arrangement or something that they're keeping kind of secret on this, because like his reaction was really odd. He was also like, do you still love me? Like, he's very worried about their relationship falling apart, and her watching the focus group of how much they don't like him, and him really even getting more in his head, where they're like having that laughing moment with the
Yeah.
sweater, and it's kind of like, see, we are like this, things can be kind of fun and funny. But it's like with this baby thing, with the doctor looking at that ultrasound for like a really long time, kind of being like, hey, is everything okay? I wonder if something else is going to be coming in for them that's going to stop this process from going forward.
Yeah, I had a lot of weird thoughts about this doctor, including, I mean, this is the weirdest one of all. Did she hook up with the doctor? Like, is that something that happened in the past? Because he was very attentive to her in a way that was a little bit odd to me in that moment. And it seemed like he didn't really want to talk to Asher in some way. And
Yeah, and it could be that because she also was like, I want to wait for Dr. Brown. I want to wait for Dr. Brown. Then Dr. Brown, is staring at that ultrasound for a really long time. I'm just like, yeah, is something else medically going on with her where
hmm
she's like, hey, are you okay? Or it could be, hey, I'm the person that gave you that baby. So, like, hey, are you okay?
yeah,
That he's reflective on it.
I think both of these ideas make a lot of sense. That it's one of them, or it's clear that no matter what it is, there's something that Whitney is keeping from Asher, whether it is a relationship here, a medical issue here, or some other sort of incident that's happened, because she doesn't really want to deal with anything that's that vulnerable. She doesn't really want to deal with anything that is hard, and that's ultimately, it's a big part of why she's so focused on this persona. And if she just acts out this persona all the time, she doesn't have to deal with anything hard. And I think that's why recording that fight, even if it was by accident, and then her having to look back at it, like, that is her actually having to confront something that is very real, which is that she is trying to manufacture every part of her life, and she's got one like actual kind of genuine moment between her and her husband, and now she's just like, let's do this again. And you can't recreate something that's that genuine. It would sort of be like, we tell each other some really, really funny jokes, and they're the funniest thing we ever heard off camera. And then we come on here and we try to tell them again, and we're kind of laughing, and maybe it works, but it's never going to be the same.
That moment with the sweater, I was like, okay, this is going on a long time. Like,
Yeah.
they let this go on way longer than it really needed to go on to be able to get to the point that actually mattered, which was probably my favorite part of all these episodes, where I actually finally got a peek behind the curtain, where they had a moment of joy together, where they actually were laughing with
hmm
each other, where there was a little bit of chemistry, where I was like, okay, I actually see what is going on. Like, how did these people get together? Even the focus group was like, oh, there's no chemistry. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is I don't understand this coupling. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. But then there's that little bit of joy. Then there's actually that fight that happens with them where we can see that they're not listening to each other. They're not connected in that kind of a way. There's just little fleeting moments. It feels more like just this partnership of convenience.
So I think one thing this episode does that's really, really good is that it's shorter. Like I think 45 minutes or so is optimal for this show. I don't think it needs to be an hour because then some things do tend to drag a little bit
Oh,
sort of
yeah?
throughout.
You didn't need to have, like, that 10-minute shot of Dougie just laying on a bed, like, getting ready to cry? Like, stop! Like, if you don't need this character, just let him go.
Yeah, that's the worst part of this episode. Like I don't care about Dougie at all. Like I really don't. And I understand that Benny Safdie is like a really big part of things behind the scenes with this show, and maybe he wanted to have a pretty substantial role, and maybe Nathan and Emma wanted him to have one too, but it's not working because I don't care about him. Like his function on the show is okay, you're helping to get this reality show that they're making for HGTV made. And yeah, if the show is in production, yes, we need to see him. Sure, he's lonely. Sure, he's clearly got a lot going on, but it's just also, I don't know why I need to be invested in this guy's story. I'm sorry.
I'm not invested in him at all. Like, it's fine that he's there when his purpose is there, which is that he's trying to help get the show made. So yeah, he wants to come and put blueberries on their couch and show them the focus group.
Yeah.
No problem. But like him on that date in the last episode, I just don't I don't need to be part of this. Like him, this big long shot of how lonely he is. It's just like I'm not this show is about Whitney and Asher
Yeah.
and what is going on with them and their show and the curse. It's not really about Dougie. So, like, no offense to the actor or anything like that, but it just doesn't feel threaded into anything else that's going on. It's kind of like you've got this show over here,
Yeah.
and then over on this other show is Dougie crying in a bed.
It needs to have focus, and that's why I think that the curse has a lot that's going for it that is interesting, and it has some funny moments. It's not on the level of I think a lot of these other like awkward comedies yet, just because of the idea that it doesn't have that much of a concentration as to what it's trying to say. Like I'm enjoying it, but I know there's also a lot of people who think that this is the greatest show ever made this year, and it's just like I'm not on that level yet, guys. I'm sorry. Maybe I'll get there. I'm just not there right now.
I'm not sorry. I am not on that level. This is not one of the greatest shows ever made at this point. Like, if it gets there, it's going to have to take a hard curve to get me there. Like, it's fine. I think I really hyped myself up going into it with the cast, with the trailer. I was like, the premise. I'm like, this could be really good. But right now, it just feels like a bunch of stories that aren't really threaded together. Like, it's like, this is happening here, this is happening here, this is happening here. It's not really all put together until this episode. There's a couple of those stories are starting to thread together, but the first few episodes just felt like a bunch of pocket stories that just aren't interesting enough to be held on their own. Like, it's kind of finding its footing, but it's taking its time to get there.
Well, let's cross our fingers. Let's hope that episode 4 cures all of the curses that this show may have put upon itself by dwelling on Dougie and other people that don't matter all that much.
Yeah, listen, this show is not Fargo season 5,
Okay, well-
which so far is just straight fire. It's so good.
Not everybody can have John Hamm coming out of a hot tub with like weird piercings and like not that this show Fargo is something else. So just put it that way.
I like that that's what you focused on.
It's the most jarring visual in my head. I did not need to see it. I did not need to see the stuff on the front, the stuff on the back. I was good.
Listen, those piercings, they're getting pulled. I'm saying it right now.
Okay. Well, while I'm thinking about that level of physical pain, remember to join our Patreon. We have that link in the description below. Live streams every single week about the curse. Thank you so much to our patrons. We really
Thank you.
appreciate you. We'll see you guys here next time.